Hi, this is Esther Lin, photographer for MMAfighting.com. I'd like to share a few of my images from traveling to Tokyo for UFC Japan. I spent my first day in Tokyo visiting the city's many museums and popping up to the Mori Art Museum's observation room to get a bird's view of rainy Tokyo. After a day of wandering, I went to meet Josh Barnett at his hotel. On the way, I saw this man and his cats living on the street. In exchange for some yen, so he may feed himself and his pets, you may take a photo. In the subsequent mornings, I would pass him as I walked to the hotel for work each day, and he would be sweeping his section of sidewalk and caring for the cats. Then I went on a shopping excursion with Josh Barnett, first to Hardcore Chocolate, a horror and pro wrestling shirt shop with this lovely item. Then we hopped the train to Nakano Broadway for Mandarake so that Barnett could buy up some volumes of an MMA-themed manga as a gift for a friend. Barnett stood out in the dense crowds and was spotted by many fans who all very politely asked for photos. On the train, this young man asked Barnett to hit him in the chest. It was so crowded in the train I couldn't back up at all to take a proper photo. Friday morning was media day at the beautiful Tokyo American Club. I was amused by the cardboard cutouts of the top-billed fighters and spent much of my time admiring the tasteful decor of the room. I listened to the soft symphony of press and translators, the gentle clicks of cameras, and the quiet conversations of Fight Club members waiting for autographs. I borrowed a stepladder and took a photo of Roy Nelson's scrum from above just as he glanced up. Almost seems like he is looking right into my camera. The media day went in shifts, and after the second batch, Josh Barnett spent time autographing guitars and taking photos with fans. I don't know that I've ever seen an American MMA fan in a nice yellow cashmere sweater and pearls. I had traveled to Tokyo to document Barnett in his elements, Japan being a cultural second home, and here in the metal scene. After the media day, I accompanied Barnett to a club in Shibuya to see Swedish death metal band Watain. In his domain, Barnett was politely mobbed by fans who all professed their deep affection for the Pride and K1 days and applauded his Venom shirt. There were fans of all ages and types, and so many of them saw me and would ask me in Japanese, "Kare wa Josh Barnett desu?" I would nod, laughing, and Barnett would interrupt and respond in Japanese, surprising and delighting them. Barnett speaks far more Japanese than I ever did, even when I was deep in my language studies at UCLA. The show was satanically superb. I had banged along with the rest of the crowd. Barnett's devil horns in the air, singing loudly when they performed War Master, a rallying song to send Barnett off to battle. After the show, the guitarist gave Barnett his pick, and they waxed poetic on Pride, the old days of fighting, and UFC's visits to Sweden. The band conversed with the War Master, asking tips on treating injuries while traveling, toasting the tour, and wishing their friend in the dark arts a brutal victory. Only a heavyweight could be out at a concert the night before weigh-ins. Bright and early the next morning, we were all at Saitama Super Arena. After a fairly quiet but pensive face-off, Barnett and coach Eric Paulson posed for a selfie on the stage as the lights dimmed. I was pretty hyped for this fight now, and even more excited to be finished with my workday at 2 p.m. I tagged along with UFC's guest fighters to the Inoki Saka bar and Izakaya. Yes, a bar centered around Puroresu and Antonio Inoki. Customers at a neighboring table turned out to be fight fans and asked to take photos with Demetrius Johnson, while Cub Swanson had fun with the Inoki cutout. After dinner, I coerced everyone into a print club photo booth. I don't have any photos of the actual photo-taking experience because I was partaking in the fun, but also busy operating the machine for my companions as its interface was in Japanese. Here's the result. It's fight day. I'm on one of the two trains I need to take to get to Saitama Super Arena at 6:30 a.m., and here's a group of boys headed to a badminton game, up at the crack of dawn like myself. UFC shows here in Japan are usually in the mornings, so that they can be on primetime television in the States. Despite the sleepy morning hour, the fights were still action-filled. This was an early stunner as Keitaro Nakamura came back from nearly 3 entire rounds of being battered by Lee with this rear naked choke that left the Chinese fighter unconscious. The crowd rejoiced, cried out in the sweetness of such a hard-fought win. The road to Japan final between Teruto Ishihara and Mizuto Hirota was a fun fight. Lots of back-and-forth action with Ishihara landing some big shots, but the more experienced Hirota coming on strong towards the end. But where there should have been a fourth round to break the tie, there was only confusion. The day continued with an impressive performance from veteran Takeya Mizugaki, who broke down after his win, overwhelmed, even crying through his entire post-fight interview. You can see the tears streaming out of his eyes here as the crowd applauds Mizugaki for his efforts and his effusive honesty. Then Horiguchi followed with an electric display of striking, his hands crisp, zipping angles with dazzling speed. It was an invigorating performance to watch. The arena buzzed quietly in anticipation of the final stretch. I love this place. I have fond memories of seeing Gono or Aoki walk out with the giant screens light show, of the white ring with white ropes when I came out to photograph Dream and Sengoku. For the first round, Musashi squarely controlled the younger Hall on the ground. But as soon as the second round began, Hall went for what he said was his favorite spinning back kick. So perfectly placed, the toes wrapped right around Musashi's temple here in this image. Hall followed up with a knee, and the fight was stopped soon after that. It was succinct and quickly vicious in such an unexpected fashion, yet, somehow, entirely the way in which you'd see Uriah Hall winning this bout. Then it was time for the main event. The theme to Fist of the North Star began to play, and the crowd began to applaud and ooh with approval and excitement as Josh Barnett walked out. The fight was grueling. Roy Nelson took an inhuman amount of punishment and continued to dole out his own reprisals. It was an exhausting endeavor, as heavyweight fights are never predicted to go 5 rounds. In the end, both were spent. Barnett went to Nelson, chuckling, asking why he made the fight so long. Later, the War Master would joke that Big Country was a dick for making him throw so many strikes. Barnett was then interviewed where he gave Nelson high praise and thanked the Japanese fans for the continued support. If you've ever watched a broadcast of the UFC in Japan, you've probably seen this amazing translator, Isuka Koike. She translated not only the words of Barnett's speech, but also the sentiment. She shines in her ability to convey the emotions of sport and prize fighting. As Barnett wrapped up in the cage, we in the line of photographers began to call out for a pose, and Barnett made his way straight to us, first posing for the legendary photographer Susumu Nagao. Barnett told me later that he always made sure to look for Nagao-san after a fight. Barnett then began to exit the arena, fans cheering and applauding, waiting patiently to congratulate him in his homecoming of sorts. He basked in the joy and exultation. After the post-press conference, Barnett shared some art a fan had made him and given him. It was clear this was the perfect place for the War Master to perform. Barnett responded to questions about Japanese MMA's health with encouragement, hoping that the fans would continue their support, but also that the UFC would continue to return to Japan. Back in Shinjuku, it was time for Barnett's celebratory dinner with friends. Many had made a long journey to support him. It was a rainy week here in Tokyo, but filled with a warmth that comes from the discovery that your nostalgia is real, that the comfort you felt here in Tokyo before wasn't rose-colored. We returned to that fond memory and came to add to it, with a new victory to share with friends across the world. This is Esther Lin for MMAfighting.com, and thank you for watching.